All right, so then we are ready to start. Yeah. Okay, let me find my things. Okay, so the last time we did control and complementation. And I got most of the way through what I wanted to talk about. We looked at functional control. And I started with raising. And I'm going to redo that and continue with that. And then we're going to look at anaphoric control very briefly. And then we'll start into long distance dependencies. Which is something that LFG is very good at. And then if there's time, this is what's next on the topic, is information structure. If there is time. I somehow doubt it, but let's see how far we get. That's related. Okay, so now, functional control. Who remembers from last time? What is functional control? An example? What's an example of a control verb? Seems is being suggested. Okay, this actually falls under raising. So we'll get back to that. What was control? What did I just hear? Yeah. For example, persuade. Kim persuaded Sandy to drive. Okay, and there the point is that we have a control verb which has a subject, an object, and an ex-comp. And the ex-comp is this thing. This is the object, that's the subject. And here we have an empty subject or an unpronounced subject, and that is controlled by Sandy. Yeah, so this is object control. And then we had subject control verbs as well. Kim promised Sandy to drive. And we have basically exactly the same thing, except object, and here's the ex-comp. That in this case, this is controlled by, no, not by promised, but by the subject. So here we have subject control, and there we have object control. Okay, so we did that, and I showed you F structures, and we talked about having to write equations in the lexical entries, the fact that it's a lexical property, etc., etc. Okay. And then we got to these ones. These things here are also known as, in the old literature, these are known as instances of equi. Equiverbs, meaning this verb has a thematic role here, the agent. This verb has a thematic role, the patient. Okay, and these are sort of equivalent in a sense, that this verb says, I need something here, this verb says, I need something here. These things are known as raising. Why? Because it looks like seems doesn't really have a thematic role to say. Right? So if you ask about, okay, what's the agent of seem, or who's seeming? It's there, not clear. Who's reigning, we don't know. Yeah? So the idea with verbs like seem is that what happens here is you have an entry where you say, so the entry for persuade, let me start with that, would be persuade. We would have something like an agent and a patient, or what did we say, a goal? Something like that, doesn't matter. Agent, patient, and some kind of event, and that would link to an subject, object, and an XComp. Whereas with seem, what we have is we have some kind of an event, and then we have some kind of theme argument that's outside. Okay, so that's sort of non-thematic, or some kind of X argument, we could call it. And what that links to is then a subject and an XComp. And the crucial thing is that for non-thematic arguments, they're outside of the angle brackets. Okay, but that's the only distinction that LFG makes, really. So for verbs like seem, it says, well, seem doesn't have a thematic role for this. We don't know who it is, agent, patient, it makes no difference. There's no thematic content with it, so put it outside the angle brackets. But syntactically, this is a subject, and it acts like a subject for all intents and purposes. So from here on, everything is actually the same. So if we do, okay, we said copulas we shouldn't do. So I'll do another example. Instead of be the boss, we say seems to be running or driving. Let's do driving because we have drive before. Driving a car. Let's do an analysis for that. So we would have a pred. The top pred would be seem with an XComp and a subject. And the subject is John. And I'll just write it in big letters here. And then we have an XComp. And what's in the XComp? You guys can help me with this. So this has tense present and mood indicative and things like this. And what's inside the XComp? Louder. A pred saying what? A pred with what value? Pred is a good guess. What with? Drive, yeah, okay. Pred drive with a subject and an object. And the subject, I'll leave that out for now. The object is car. Okay, and I'm writing this in big letters because it'll be pred car, case whatever, accusative, etc., right? And then we have a control equation that will do this. Okay, so a subject control verb here. So seam will have an entry that says ups pred is equal to seam. Ups x comp. And we need a control equation. What will the control equation say to make sure that this works out? Yeah, I'm waiting for dictation. There should be a known entity. How do we write the control equation? What's the relationship between this and this? Yeah.
Well, the subject needs to be equal to the subject of the x-comp, but I don't know how to put it.
Okay, that's right. So the subject needs to be set equal to the subject of the x-comp, but she doesn't know how to put it. Suggestion? Nope. Yes?
Well, yeah, we need the brackets saying x-comp subject and equals the subject.
Ups x-comp subject is equal to ups subject. Okay, up refers to the F structure where this predicate, okay, this thing is pointing to this. Let's number it 1. Okay, so it says, of this F structure, there's a pred, seam, whatever. Of that same F structure, there's an x-comp. I'm assuming there's an x-comp that has a subject, and that subject will be equal to ups, this same F structure, subject. Okay? So if you take this as the anchor, say whatever F structure we're referring to, that's this one. For that one, we have a subject and an x-comp, ups, ups. And for that one, if we have an x-comp subject, then it'll be equivalent to that F structure subject. Okay? So this looks exactly like the entry for persuade. Not for persuade, for promise. I'll put that up here too, just so that you can compare. So for promise, we would say ups pred is equal to promise. And what do we have in promise? We have a subject and an object and an x-comp. So it's not exactly like it. It has one argument extra, but this part will look exactly the same. Okay, so in terms of the control equations, it looks exactly the same. And the difference is at what you consider to be the thematic status of the argument. If it's non-thematic, it's outside of the angle brackets. If it's thematic, it's inside of the angle brackets. That goes back to linking theory. Okay, questions about this? No?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's okay. John seems to be driving a car. This to be driving is progressive. Is it stated somewhere?
Yeah, we should actually. That's right. Good point. Good that you said that. So we should say something in here about seems to be. So we should say something in here about tense or asp. Is it progressive? Yeah, he's driving asp progressive plus or something like that. Or aspect progressive, yeah. And we should also say something in here about V-form infinitive, yeah, to register that this is a non-finite. Yeah. So this one will have tense and mood indicative, and this one should have something about aspect, but no tense. It's not tensed. Yeah. And something about that is infinitive. So that's good that you brought that up. Any other questions? I'll leave that one up. How about this example? I don't think we'll take Zeus. I was thinking, which hero do I want? And we should take Xena. Okay, so how about this sentence? Let's try to analyze this sentence. Okay, so I'll let you beginning linguists analyze this sentence. It's not quite simple. But you can start with things that you feel sure you know about. What's the main predicate? Believe is the main predicate. So this will be the main predicate. Let me start making an analysis here. Was that too fast? And if you don't know who Xena is, then you should go look that up. Okay, so we have pred, believe. Okay, what about believe? Subject, yeah, so it has a subject which is we. Has a subject and it's thematic, right? I've put it in here, but it's thematic. It's somebody's doing something here. Okay, what else? Comp or X-comp, right? It's comps are for finite things. So we have an X-comp here. Yeah, with a missing subject, with an empty subject. Yeah, just like it seems to be raining. If it were a comp, there's a version of this with a comp that would be, we believed that Xena is all powerful. And then this would be the comp, and this would be the subject. Yeah? With a finite verb. Yeah. Okay, so that's an X-comp, so it has an X-comp. Okay, X-comp. And maybe we should start by saying what's in the X-comp. And this is a copular verb again, so actually we should change this example. I don't know. So last time we said we just but this is not an object, huh? What? What? You don't want me to change the example?
No, I just said have, and then it's a copular too. So.
Yeah, it's a copular too. Yeah. We'll just keep it as a copular verb. To be all powerful. And I'll tell you what my analysis of this is. Okay, we'll just keep it. Okay, so we have in there is a subject somewhere, right? So we'll say pred is be, and so I invented something called a pred link. And pred link is a good cover term for things like all powerful or green or whatever. I'll do this one properly. Pred. We'll treat this as a multi-word expression. Okay, and it'll be a type, it's an adjective, predicative.
What's a pred link again?
This is what, you haven't seen this before. This is something that was invented, and I was part of the invention. And, okay, I should do a slight excursus. I said I wasn't going to do it, but I need to. So for copular verbs, you tend to have three types of things. You can say John is running. That's a verb. You can say John is a teacher. You can do several kinds of things. John is powerful. And John is in the garden. Okay, so if you look at these, in all of these, this is the subject. And this part is a predication, what is called, of the subject. So what this part does, it gives you a property of the subject, yeah? So John is something. Green, red, powerful, somewhere in the garden, okay? So it's one of those, it's an interesting construction because you can have all kinds of things here. You can have a VP, an NP, an adjective phrase, a prepositional phrase. You can have all kinds of stuff there. But the semantics is similar. You're saying something about John. And you can worry about how to call these things. And I decided that a good cover term would be pred link. Yeah. To just say, look, this information is being said about the subject in some way. That's all that that's supposed to express. Okay, and so we know that there's a subject about whom something is being said, and this is clearly Zina. And does Zina have a relationship to the matrix verb? Should be the object. Looks like the object, it's next to the verb. But the sentence is not like, we believed him. Right? We believed him, it's clearly an object. So if we have something like, we believed him, or we believed Zina. This is clearly the subject, and this is clearly the object. But this is not the kind of belief we have here, right? So we didn't, Zina said something here and we believed her. But that's not what the reading is there. Right, do you see that? Yeah. So it doesn't seem to have this kind of relationship to beliefs. So is it really the object though? Can we test that? Passivization, we can try that. Zina was believed to be all-powerful by us. That works. So it seems like this is actually the syntactic object. We could maybe try some other tests, but okay, let's finish this part. We say, okay, whatever else, this is the syntactic object. So we have a subject that is we. We have an object that is Zina. And this Zina is linked here, right? But is this actually right, the way I wrote it? Let's think about that for a second. Because I said that this is not the same kind of... So here we really believe Zina is the patient or the theme of this, right? So there's two things going on. We believe Zina. So should that be the same? And the answer is probably not. What we probably want is we want something like believe. What would it be? Some kind of experiencer. Somebody believes something. Experiencer believes some event or state. And then there's some kind of X. Right? So this would be something, I believe that Zina is something. And here's another non-thematic entity. And what would happen is that this links to subject, this links to XComp, and this links to the object. Okay, so in this case, what we have with believe is a non-thematic object. And that means that the entry up there is not quite right. What should it be? What should it be? It should be, the object should be outside, right? So here we have XComp, and then the object should be outside. And then the lexical entry in terms of just functional structure would be and I need a control equation. What's my control equation to do this? Ups XComp subject is equal to ups object. Okay, so again, the control equations look very similar at that level. At the syntactic level, things work exactly the same. The difference is at what is the non-thematic role. And that gets registered functional structure in terms of being outside of these angle brackets. As a note, if you have done other syntactic theories, or if you're going to read more, this phenomenon is also known as exceptional case marking. So in generative syntax, this is what it's known as, or ECM. So if you read papers on this and you see ECM, this is the phenomenon. Except for case marking, because Zina is actually the subject of this. But in languages where you can see case marking, it'll get an accusative. Yeah. I think Latin, whoever knows Latin, they have these kinds, yeah. And so the puzzle has been, how do you get accusative case marking for something where this verb is not actually saying you are my thematic argument. Yeah? Yeah, ACI.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's that kind of, so accusativ cum infinitivum. Yeah, right, that one? Yeah, infinitive, yeah. And there's many theories about this, and LFG solves it fairly simply. Okay, questions? Last chance to do raising. Okay, so then we've done functional control and raising. We worked our way down here. And there's much more to be said about all of these issues. You can do much deeper reading. I'm just giving you the basics here. Okay, so now. Okay, now let's look at examples like this. This example is due to one of my teachers who was from Kerala, is from Kerala. And all of his examples involved mice and elephants and things like that, and people pinching things. So, what do we have here? We have, what's the main predicate of the sentence? Yeah, the B, yeah, so B is the main predicate of the sentence. This is a predlink in a sense. Okay, doing something is foolish. What about this? Yeah, that's actually a bit difficult. It's an ex-comp, except it's a subject, right? So then this is one of the parts where the theory is not quite good. So it's a subject, but it's non-finite. So it's going to look a bit odd. And we have a verb in here, right? Which has an object. And who's the subject? We don't know. Pro, yeah, we could write in here pro. Little pro, according to the theory. So it's not anybody we can find in the sentence, right? So in the other cases before, with the control and the raising, we could point to something. We could say that subject is my subject, and here there's nothing here, okay? And this is a case of what is called anaphoric control. And I'm not going to go into it more, I just want you to know about it. Where you don't know who the subject of the sentence is, and generally it's some generic person. You know, I'm telling all of you, pinching elephants is a stupid thing to do. Yeah. So you could be the subject, you could be the subject, anybody could be the subject. It depends on the context. So you have to do resolution in the context. So just that's just the point, that not everything is functional control, where you find it inside the clause, but that you also get elements where the subject is missing and where you have to do the resolution via the discourse. Okay, so that's all I have to say about that, actually. Okay, so then let's move on to long-distance dependencies. So, long-distance dependencies. Dependencies. They come in all. There's various types of long-distance dependencies. In English, you have, for example, questions. You could have relative clauses. And you could have what I'll just call topicalization for simplicity. And I'll give you some examples of that. So we have something like, Chris, we think that David saw. Okay, or Chris, we think that Mary believes that David saw. Okay, so let's try to analyze these first. What's going on here? So start, what's the main predicate? What are the grammatical relations? That's the first thing to do. What's the main predicate here? Yeah, think, yeah. Think is the main predicate. And what kinds of arguments does it have? We is the subject. Yeah, and then there's a comp. Okay. Then inside the comp we have saw, and David is the subject of saw. And what's Chris doing? Hanging about at the front of the sentence. Yeah. It's the object of saw. So Chris actually belongs over here. Okay, and the same thing here, right? So this is just one more. So we have think, which has a comp. That's this whole thing. And this is the subject. And then we have another verb, believes, which has a subject and a comp, which is this whole thing. And then we have another verb, which has a subject and an object, which is this thing. And you can embed indefinitely. right? This is a recursive structure. You can put as many that's as you want. Okay, let's try a few more before we actually analyze this. This is the other famous example, beans I like. Beans I want Kim to like. Beans I want Kim to want Sandy to like. And beans I believe that Kim wants Sandy to know, I'm just making these up, that Kim likes. Okay, I'm just making them up. The point should become clear. What's going on here? Like has a subject, and it has an object that's been topicalized. No XComps, no comps, no anything. What's going on here? The main predicate is want, right? It has a subject. What about the rest of the sentence? XComp is which one? Which one's the XComp? To like. Yeah. So I've already said so. And what's Kim? Kim is the object of want. Beans is the object of like. And Kim is also the subject of like, right? It's controlling that. And then we can do the same. These just get more complicated, but it's the same thing. Want is subject, has an object. Then there's an XComp, which goes all the way here. There's a subject here, which is missing an object and an XComp. And I won't do all of these, but here again, Kim is, I'll just say, I believe that is a comp. Wants Sandy to know is an XComp. I'm missing a T here. To know, that is a comp. Kim likes, and this is the object. Okay, one more piece of data before, or two more pieces of data before I tell you, before we analyze this. There's some things we cannot do.
Can I just ask you something?
Yep.
Is want, so want Kim to, etc., is that one of those So is Kim a non-thematic object again? Or
No. So the question is Kim a non-thematic object like it was with believe?
yeah.
But in this case, it's usually analyzed as a thematic object because we really want Kim to do something. So Kim is sort of the patient, right?
I see.
So I want you to do your homework.
Yeah.
You're doing so. I want, you know.
Yeah. So that's a
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a thematic.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Oh. Okay, so we have something that, like this, that David saw Chris surprised me. Okay, I'll tell you what the analysis of this is. What we have is we have an object, and this is a subject complementizer, I'll just call it that. So you can say that, right? So that Chris saw surprised me. It surprised me, or you can say that David saw Chris surprised me. What you cannot say, this is the point, is you cannot say Chris that David saw surprised me. Okay, and this is a very, very old observation. It's called the sentential subject constraint. And it was noticed by a very famous linguist, Hodge Ross, in 1967. If you don't know about Hodge Ross, you can go read about him. He's a very interesting man. And what you figured out is that you cannot actually move things out of, or you cannot extract things out of subjects. Okay, so if a thing is a subject, then you cannot move it out of there. So that's one thing we need to take care of. Okay, the other point I'll make later. So now let's try to analyze these things. So these are clearly long-distance dependencies, right? So the long-distance dependency means you have an object or some kind of grammatical relation or some kind of item that's licensed within a local clause, but that appears somewhere far away. And it can appear arbitrarily far away, as you can see. You can keep making up sentences like that. Okay, so in other theories, this is done, so in the generative syntax that you might have known here, minimalism, etc. Well, minimalism doesn't do it anymore, but traditionally it's been thought of as movement. You start out with an object here, and you move it over here. And how you move it and why you move it, etc. Many theories. Work well, don't work well, but many, many theories about how and why you move. LFG's approach is different. LFG doesn't do movement. What LFG says is, this is what we have. And it does an analysis just like we did here. And it says, okay, this thing, what is this thing? Well, it's the object of something somewhere else. So the way LFG thinks about this is, we need to figure out what the predicate-argument relationships are, and we usually do it locally. Yeah. So we are here, we say, okay, here's my subject, where's my object? We can do functional control as well, we know about that. Yeah. Now what about these things that are far away? Well, what you can do is you can define something called a long distance dependency path or a functional dependency path. Make sure. A functional uncertainty path. Dependency path. So what you do is when you're here, you're saying, okay, I'm here. Now let me know what I know. Let me think about what I know about this language. If I'm here, where could I have come, or who do I belong to? Who could I possibly belong to? So let's try to think about who you could possibly belong to. Okay, so you could possibly belong to just the same F structure. You're just in a different position. You've been scrambled in some sense. Okay. So you could just be an object. You could belong to the comp. You could be the object of an embedded comp. Yeah? Am I making sense? So you could be a comps object. What about this one? This one is the object of a comp. Let's try the other way. The object of a comp that is within a comp. Yeah. We did this one. How about this one? I left out xcomp here. What is it here? It's the object of this one, yeah. It's the object of the xcomp. In this third sentence, it's the object of the xcomp of the xcomp. And in the third sentence, it's the object of the comp of an xcomp of a comp, right? Yeah? And I said before, we can have many, many, many of these. So let's think about, we want a generalization. I'll just tell you how one can write this generalization. Let's call it the topicalization path. Topicalization dependency path. We could formulate it as follows. We can either have an xcomp or a comp. Okay, now see if you think that makes sense. So this means either or, either an xcomp or a comp. What does this mean? Yeah. Yeah? Yeah, so this is the Kleene star. This is a regular expression. You have either or, and this is the Kleene star, meaning 0 to infinitely many. Yep. So this has 0, so I can either have this work out to 0, then I have this case. Yeah. I don't have any comps, but I always have the object. Or I can have infinitely many of these in alternation. So I can have all kinds of these things. I can have even more, different ones. Which sentence should we analyze? We should do one sample analysis, right? Pick one. Most complicated one, or make up a new one. The most complicated one? That one? Yeah, okay. Let's see if I'm tall enough to put all that sentence on the board. Okay, so let's do a C structure first. All right, let's see. So now we get into questions of what should our C structure look like. Let's see. I think what Mary Dalrymple does is she has something here, which is could be anything. It could be an XP. In this case, it's a noun phrase. And what she says about this, or what one generally says about this, you could think of this as a type of topic in English. So you could say, okay, whatever this is here, this is going to be my topic. I know that. Then, move on. Have our normal subject here. And that what we have. We don't have an auxiliary. So now we have believe. Now I have to make sure I don't believe CP. See that. CP has an IP with an NP, which is Kim. And then we have I and a VP, which has wants. An NP and a VP. This is a V. What did we call it last time? I think we called it a VP inf or something like that, right? And then we had a part inf, which is the 2. And a VP, which is no, a V. And now this is getting very small, so I might have to start all over again. That IP. What do we have here? IVP. Okay, almost made it. Okay. So let me be a bit less spacey here. I believe, right. So you'll have to bear with me if you make me do such long sentences. Okay, so now here we have our NP, and then we have our IVP. Kim here, and then we have a V, NP, BP inf, V is wants, Sandy. Make sure that I'm not making any mistakes. 2, V, no, CP. Now we've got Kim twice, huh? Let's not do Kim here. It doesn't actually matter, we'll just keep her. Her or him, doesn't matter. Okay, so let's make sure we've got it. So beans has to be up here. Beans. Beans, I believe that Kim wants Sandy to know that Kim likes. Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay. Now let's start doing the functional annotation. Subject. This is all up equals down, up equals down, up equals down, up equals down. What's this? This is the comp. This is the comp of the above sentence. This is up equals down. This is up equals down. This is up equals down. This is all just information. What's this? Kim? This one? Subject, object, oblique.
So that's the comp subject, isn't it? But you write it down.
It's the comp subject, but we already know that the comp is here.
So then.
So within the comp, it's just a subject, right? Because the rules that we're referring to would say CP goes to CIP, right? And then IP would go to NP I bar, and this would be the subject. So I always use the same set of rules, right? And the functional annotation is done automatically here. Okay, so this is up equals down. What's Sandy? Object. What's the VP inf here? It's an X comp. Okay, he will just go up equals down, up equals down, up equals down. What's the CP? Comp. Up equals down, up equals down. What's Kim? Subject. Up equals down, up equals down, up equals down, and then we have to have all the lexical entries. And on top of that, so we've got all that. Okay, I'll leave that. So let's do an F structure. Okay, what's our top? I think I'll do an F structure over there. I think I have more space. Okay, so what's our F structure? What's our top predicate? Shows the start a bit. Yeah. Believe, subject, comp. Yep. Okay. So our top predicate will be pred, believe, I believe that, or somebody believes. Subject comp. Okay. So we have tense present, might as well get that out of the way. Mood indicative, that kind of stuff. And we have a subject, and that subject is I. Yeah? Okay, then we have a comp. What's in the comp? Want, I believe that. Yeah. Want, so pred want. And want has what? A subject, an object, and an ex-comp, right? Okay, all thematic. Okay, good. Let's see. So we have a subject. What's the subject? Kim. What's the object? Yeah, we have to go. So what's the object? Sandy. Not in here, Sandy, here. And then we have an ex-comp in here. And what's in the ex-comp? So we're here now, right?
No, well, so the pred is no.
So the pred is no. And what does no have?
Subject and comp.
A subject and a comp. And the subject and a comp. And what's the subject? Subject is Kim.
It's not option like Sandy. No.
Object control, right? So want says the ex-comp subject is my object. Yeah? So that's what want says. Okay, so that's, and now what's in the comp? Like. And what does like have? Subject, object, nothing hard. Okay. And the subject is what? Kim. And the object is, we have no idea. Well, yeah, but there's nothing in the functional annotation that tells us that right now. So everything we've got so far is, you can read off the functional annotation, yeah? Or the lexical entries. Okay, so this is now done. Let me make sure I get my things all closed off. This needs one here. And then we need that one. Okay. Okay, so now everything's in place. We know where everything is. We just don't know where the object of like is. And what we also have here is we've said the topic of the sentence is, I should have put that up there. We have a topic, and the topic is beans. Okay, so that information we have as well from this here. It says the topic of the overall sentence of the overall IP is down here, and that's beans. Okay. Another problem we have is that we have beans hanging about. We said it's a topic, but we don't know what grammatical relation it is, and we have a problem here. So we need to put those things together via the functional and dependency. So what we have is we have this long distance dependency path that went like this. It says either comp or xcomp with a cleany star. Object is down. Okay, so what this says is, I know it's the topic. Should I write that bigger?
Yeah.
Okay, so what this says here is, okay, and what I didn't mention, this is called a functional uncertainty equation. It's very important. I should have said that before. Functional uncertainty because at this point we don't know what we're going to find. We are prepared to go down infinitely many combinations of comp and xcomp. Right? At this point we do not know who this is going to belong to. Yeah? So that's why functional uncertainty, and you'll see this discussed as functional uncertainty in the literature. Okay, so we have this equation. So we can say, okay, who could you be? Could you, starting out with a simple case, could you be an object? Let's see, subject, comp, no object. All right, so starting with the simplest sort of object, no. Let's try the next one, xcomp object, for example. Could that work? Subject, comp, no xcomp. Nope. Okay, let's try another possibility. Comp object. Comp, comp is good. We find a comp, that's good. Comp has an object, but that object is known. So that's not necessary. Okay, so comp is good. Let's keep going with comp, because we didn't find anything else. So let's try that. Let's try that. Let's keep going. Comp, xcomp object. Let's try that path. Comp, xcomp, good. We found that. We could go with that. Object, nothing there. So this is not going to work either. But we did find these, right? So we found comp, xcomp. Let's see, what else could we try? We could try comp object. Comp, nope, failed right there. Okay, so let's try another one. Comp, xcomp object. Comp, xcomp, nope. Different one. Comp, xcomp, comp object. Comp, xcomp, comp, very good. Object, look at that. That one's missing. Okay. So what we choose then here, what this functional uncertainty path will expand to is this one. And we'll say beans up here is the topic, but it is also the comps, xcomps, comps object. And then we can do one of these relationships. And then we're happy. Oh, sorry, that's not I. Wrong one. Down here. Okay? So if you guys are familiar with movement theories, the intuition is I'm here, I used to be here, I move up for whatever reasons. LFG's intuition is I start out in my tree. Over here, I'm here, this is how the world is. And when I'm here, I need to figure out who I belong to. And there's many options I can write down. It depends, this is linguistic analysis, so you figure out for your language what your functional uncertainty path will be. Okay? So not out of subjects, whatever. Then you figure that out. You say, in principle, it could be any one of these options. Go find. Okay? And you can see it does some work. Yeah. But in the end, it comes out with the right thing. Questions? So we have a fairly small set of rules. Okay, let me write those down so that you can appreciate them. And we can do a whole lot of stuff with it. Okay, so we have a rule that goes IP goes to an NP optionally. And this would be the topic. And the functional uncertainty path. That's followed by an NP, which is the subject. I should write these in blue so that it's easier to see. Ups topic. Is equal to down. X comp. Object is equal to down. What's this one? This is subject. Followed by an I bar. Black. Followed by an IP. And then we have another option of this IP, and that goes to I bar. And an optional I bar, and a VP. The VP goes to a verb, an optional NP, and an optional VP inf, or a CP. Okay, so we have either comps or X comps, we don't have both. This is our object. This is our X comp. This is our comp. Okay, and then we need to have a CP, which goes to a C plus an IP. And we have a VP inf, which goes to a part inf plus a VP. I think that's it for these ones. The question is, what kinds of rules are these? These are context, these are phrase structure rules, annotated phrase structure rules. Functionally annotated phrase structure rules. Okay, so if you're trying to parse a sentence, these are the rules that tell you what kind of constituents they are, what kind of structure, and what linear order. And the functional annotation tells you what the functional relations are. Okay, plus the lexical entries. So these rules make these trees. These rules make this tree. Should be, unless I overlooked something. Plus the lexical entries. They make this tree, and they make this F structure. People are frowning. You don't get the first two rules because they're both called IP? I could have called it something different. I could have said, okay, we have an IP top or something like that topic. Would that make it better?
But so for the IP top, wouldn't it then be NP topic and IP? No.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And the IP rule is also
Yes, you're right. I did it wrong. Good, somebody was paying attention. So IP. Yeah, you're right. And then this one needs an NP in here, right? Yes, no, that's wrong. That's right. Good for paying attention. I bar. Yeah, that's because I left it out. Subject equals down. And then we need a rule for I bar, which I forgot. You can tell I don't do X bar syntax. An optional I and then a VP. And that's right now, right? IP goes to NP I bar goes to optional I with a VP, and then we go to VP. Yeah? That look better? Check it out. Make sure I didn't make a mistake there. Yeah.
You need a rule that says I goes to VP, like I with I bar.
We don't. That's the way Mary Dalrymple does it. So she has the IP. Well, people generally agree that there's a kind of IP. And in the system that Mary Dalrymple adopted that goes back to several other people is that you have, this is optional, and if there's an auxiliary here, it's actually realized as an auxiliary. So all of our sentences haven't had an auxiliary in there.
What's the sentence? Kim wants Sandy. That is I.
This one is a Kim wants Sandy, so
VP as I.
I bar.
I didn't see the bar.
Yeah, sorry. That's why I put up the rules so that it's clear.
Yeah, that's why I was.
Yeah. Okay, anything else that needs to be corrected or asked about? No? Okay, we're over time, so see you then in the new year, right? Okay.